My husband, 26-year-old male, and I, 28-year-old female, live in a 2-by-2 apartment and are expecting our first baby in the fall. We both work from home about half the time, so we each need separate spaces at home to work from. He currently works in our second bedroom, and I work in the living room. We will each only have 4 weeks of maternity/paternity leave, but after that, I can continue to work from home through the end of the year. My parents live out of state, and they have already assured us that they will stay in a hotel when they come to visit us to meet the baby, which can be anytime I choose. My in-laws live about 3 hours away, and we drive to visit them every couple of months for a long weekend. This will be their first grandchild. I like to keep our house pretty clean and organized, and we have no pets. My in-laws have a massive dog that sheds all over their house, and they do not keep a clean and organized house at all. I dread going to stay with them, but they are perfectly nice, and I want to have a good relationship with them, so I suck it up for a few days, even though I am totally grossed out and have allergy issues when we stay there. My in-laws have never come to stay with us since we have lived in the same state. We always go to them. Okay, so here's my issue. My husband has made the assumption that my mother-in-law will stay with us for several days to weeks after the baby comes to help out. I told him that I don't think we need any help with just one baby, especially since I have extensive childcare experience and am a medical professional. I don't want anyone to come and stay as a guest who I have to clean up after, on top of having a new baby for the first time. His argument is that she will be there to help watch the baby and to cook and clean for us. I don't want her to do any of that, partially because I find it unnecessary and partially because I'm certain it will just create more work for me. My in-laws are welcome to come and visit for a few days at a time and see the baby for a few hours at a time, but I don't want anyone staying in our apartment with us. We have just enough space for us to both work from home comfortably and can convert our second bedroom into a nursery when the time comes. I want to eliminate the guest bed and ask his parents to stay in a hotel when they come to visit. I'm willing to compromise and offer an inflatable mattress or our large couch in the living room if they want to stay for a few days maximum, but even that makes me cringe. Am I being crazy or is this a reasonable request? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. If for no reason other than this wasn't a decision for your husband to make on his own. I will preface this by saying I am not married and I do not have children. However, my brother and his wife had twins a year ago, and my mom and I talked about this some leading up to their birth. As the mother-in-law who lives 4 hours away and was the closest grandparent, my mom's points were: 1. It's up to the new mom if they want anyone to stay in their house after the birth and who that person is. 2. Given the highly personal nature of some new mom activities, that is breastfeeding, the new mom would most likely feel most comfortable with her own mom, not mother-in-law. 3. As the mother-in-law, she would offer to do whatever the new mom wanted, but wouldn't force herself onto the new mom. Sorry if I wrote that in a confusing way. I just wanted to make it more generic and not just about my mom and sister-in-law. Comment 2. So when my first was born, my mother-in-law came to stay for a week. She did help around the house, but things had to be done her way. She also was annoyed that we didn't allow her to smoke in the house and that she had to change clothes when she came in if she wanted to hold the baby. Finally, Friday rolled around and my mom offered to come. Now my mom is questionable, but when it comes to a new baby, she comes to work and gets paid in baby snuggles. And she doesn't smoke. So I talked to my husband and he agreed to switch the mothers out. He was tired of the constant complaining about not being able to smoke in the house too. Mother-in-law never forgave me for that. But seriously, I can't whip out a breast in front of my mother-in-law. Grandparents are privileged to spend time with their grandbabies. It's not a right. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So a lot has happened in the past week that has really shifted my perspective on everything. First off, my husband and I had a long, serious talk about his mom staying with us after the baby is born. I laid out all my concerns again, and he finally seemed to get it. He admitted that he hadn't really thought about how much extra work it would be for me to have his mom around, especially since she isn't the tidiest person. He also realized that having her dog around would be a nightmare for my allergies and the cleanliness of our home. So we agreed that his parents would stay in a hotel when they visit, just like my parents. This was a huge relief for me, but it also made me realize that we needed to communicate better about our expectations and boundaries. Then something unexpected happened. My husband got a call from his boss saying that his company is downsizing and he might lose his job. This news hit us like a ton of bricks. We were already stressed about the baby coming, and now we had to worry about our financial stability. My husband was devastated, and I could see how much this was affecting him. He started to question everything, from our decision to have a baby to our living situation. It was heartbreaking to see him so lost and unsure of himself. In the midst of all this, my parents called to say that they were planning to visit us sooner than expected. They wanted to help us get ready for the baby and offer some emotional support. I was grateful for their offer, but I was also worried about how my husband would react to having them around during such a stressful time. Surprisingly, he was open to the idea. He said that having my parents around might actually help him feel more secure and supported. This was a big change from his usual stance on having guests, and it made me realize how much he was struggling. When my parents arrived, they immediately started helping us with baby preparations. They brought a bunch of baby supplies and even helped us set up the nursery. My dad, who is a retired carpenter, built some custom shelves for the nursery, which was a huge help. My mom, who is a nurse, gave us some valuable advice on newborn care. Their presence was a huge comfort to both of us, and it made me see how important it is to have a support system during such a major life change. One evening, while my parents were out for a walk, my husband and I had a heart-to-heart conversation. He opened up about his fears and insecurities about becoming a father and potentially losing his job. He admitted that he felt like he was failing us and that he didn't know how to handle everything. I reassured him that we were in this together and that we would find a way to make it work, no matter what. This conversation brought us closer together and made me realize how much we needed to support each other during this challenging time. A few days later, my husband got another call from his boss. This time, the news was more positive. His boss told him that while his current position was being eliminated, there was an opportunity for him to take on a different role within the company. It would involve some retraining and a slight pay cut, but it was a job. My husband was relieved and grateful for the opportunity. This experience made him realize that he needed to be more adaptable and open to change, which was a valuable lesson for both of us. As we continued to prepare for the baby's arrival, I started to reflect on my own childhood and the support my parents had given me. I remembered how my mom had always been there for me, even when things were tough. This made me appreciate her even more and made me determined to be the best mom I could be for our baby. I also realized that I needed to be more understanding and supportive of my husband, especially during times of uncertainty. One night, while we were putting the finishing touches on the nursery, my husband shared a story from his childhood that I had never heard before. He told me about how his mom had struggled to raise him and his siblings on her own after his dad left. She had worked multiple jobs and sacrificed so much to provide for them. This gave me a new perspective on his mom and made me understand why he felt so strongly about having her involved in our lives. It also made me realize that I needed to be more compassionate and patient with her, even if her habits sometimes drove me crazy. As the week came to an end, we were feeling more prepared and supported than ever. My parents had to head back home, but they promised to return when the baby was born. My husband and I were in a better place emotionally, and we had a clearer understanding of each other's needs and expectations. We knew that there would be more challenges ahead, but we were ready to face them together. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for letting my sister's kids stay in my flat and pissing off my neighbor? My sister, her husband, and two girls, 1-year-old and 3 years old, are visiting me and my partner in our London flat from Thursday night to Saturday night. The flat has 2 bedrooms and is technically a maisonette with 1 bedroom above the other. Because the property is old, you can hear every footstep in the upstairs bedroom from the bedroom below, and voices, etc. We have neighbors who live directly below our lower bedroom. Given that our lower floor bedroom is a bit larger than the upstairs spare bedroom, my partner and I, who usually share the lower bedroom, gave this to my sister and her family for the few nights. At about 3:30 a.m., the 3-year-old was sick, the 1-year-old was crying, and there was, of course, commotion and footsteps as my sister and her husband were trying to sort things out for 20 minutes or so. My partner and I had woken up, as we had a few times in the night when the 1-year-old had cried. At about 4 a.m., my neighbor started banging on the door. I rushed downstairs, pulling on some shorts inside out, no glasses on, and listened to my neighbor angrily rant at me for 3 minutes. My neighbor was demanding that the baby couldn't stay for another night and had to go home today, Friday, that she is working in the morning and has been kept awake for hours. She is a woman and therefore very sensitive to the noise of a crying baby, that she never makes noise in the flat, and therefore she is a good neighbor and I'm not, that I should have informed her that a baby would be here in advance, and that she had reported me to our shared landlady. I stood there dazed and apologizing intermittently until about 3 minutes in when her partner came to the door and presumably ushered her inside. She also said something about being the aggressive one and more willing to confront me about this than her partner. Her partner is typically very calm, and I have had very friendly and apologetic chats in the past with him if I ever was too loud. To be clear, I'm not typically a very loud neighbor. I didn't feel like I had a good defense at the time, that I should have informed the neighbors that there might be a crying baby and that I was the one at fault here. But then when I came back inside to my mortified guests and told them not to worry, I started to think it was the neighbor who had crossed the line here. I told the neighbor that I'd discuss it in the morning with her. I'm not entirely sure which angle to take when we do discuss. After some reflection, I feel like if she had a baby crying in the night, I wouldn't be the one banging on the door and demanding that the baby leaves. So maybe she is the one at fault here. But I do understand her point and her frustration. Any advice on how I should approach our discussion would be much appreciated. And am I at fault? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Babies crying is one of the few late-night noises that is acceptable. They fuss, they get angry / hungry / wet / dry / colicky / who bloody knows. It's annoying for the neighbors, but you are allowed to have your family stay in your home. I would try to talk to the neighbor when she hasn't just been woken up and apologize, but clarify that she can't dictate your guest list. The neighbor should just be thankful that you don't have kids. Comment 2, not the idiot. If she wants full peace and quiet at all times, don't live in a flat situation. As you're usually a quiet neighbor, she seems to have overreacted a bit about the noise. Unfortunately, your guest came with children and they can be noisy. What would her reaction have been if it was yours and your husband's child? It is what it is, and she's being a bit dramatic. Now, for the update, thanks for all the comments from the last post. So here's what happened next. The morning after the confrontation with my neighbor, I was still feeling pretty rattled. My sister and her husband were visibly uncomfortable, and I could tell they felt guilty about the whole situation. My partner suggested we all go out for breakfast to clear our heads and give the neighbor some peace. We found a cozy cafe nearby and tried to enjoy our meal, but the tension was obvious. Later that day, I decided to have a calm conversation with my neighbor. I knocked on her door and her partner answered. He seemed more relaxed and invited me in. I explained that I understood their frustration and apologized again for the disturbance. He nodded and said he appreciated the apology, but mentioned that his partner was still quite upset. He suggested we all sit down together to discuss it. When my neighbor joined us, she was still visibly angry. I reiterated my apology and explained that it was an unexpected situation with the kids getting sick. She listened but remained firm in her stance that we should have informed them beforehand. I agreed that we could have handled it better and promised to be more considerate in the future. She seemed to soften a bit, but still insisted that the baby couldn't stay another night. Feeling stuck, I decided to call our landlady to explain the situation and see if she had any suggestions. She was understanding and said she would talk to the neighbors to help mediate. That evening, she came over, and we all had a meeting in our flat. The landlady suggested that my sister and her family stay in a nearby hotel for the remaining night to avoid further conflict. My sister and her husband reluctantly agreed, and we helped them pack up and move to the hotel. The next day, my partner and I visited my sister's family at the hotel. They were in better spirits, and we spent the day exploring London together. It was a relief to have some quality time without the stress of the neighbor situation hanging over us. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were still unresolved with my neighbor. A few days after my sister's family left, I ran into my neighbor's partner in the hallway. He mentioned that his partner had been under a lot of stress at work and that the noise had pushed her over the edge. He apologized for her outburst and said he hoped we could move past it. I appreciated his honesty and told him I understood. But then something unexpected happened. My partner and I were out for a walk when we bumped into an old friend of mine from university. We hadn't seen each other in years, and it was a pleasant surprise. We caught up over coffee, and I mentioned the recent events with our neighbor. My friend shared a similar experience he had with a difficult neighbor and suggested we try mediation through a local community service. Intrigued, I looked into it and found a mediation service that specialized in resolving neighbor disputes. I brought it up with my partner, and we decided to give it a try. I approached my neighbor's partner with the idea, and he seemed open to it. After some convincing, his partner agreed as well. The mediation session was eye-opening. The mediator helped us all express our feelings and frustrations in a constructive way. My neighbor revealed that she had been dealing with anxiety and that the noise had triggered a panic attack. She apologized for her harsh words and admitted that she had overreacted. I shared that we had been trying to accommodate my sister's family and that it was an unusual situation for us as well. Through the mediation, we reached an understanding. We agreed to communicate better in the future and to be more considerate of each other's needs. My neighbor even suggested we exchange phone numbers so we could text if there were any issues. It felt like a weight had been lifted, and I was hopeful that we could move forward positively. In the weeks that followed, things improved significantly. My neighbor and I exchanged friendly greetings in the hallway, and there were no more late-night disturbances. My partner and I made an effort to keep the noise down, and our neighbor seemed more relaxed. Reflecting on the whole experience, I realized how important communication and understanding are in maintaining good relationships with those around us. It also made me appreciate the support of my partner and the willingness of my neighbor to work through the conflict. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for threatening to call CPS on my parents after they dumped my siblings on me? I am the oldest of my 7 siblings. My parents worked a lot when I was a kid, so I always took care of my younger siblings. 2 years ago, I got a better paying job that was far from my parents, so I told my parents that they couldn't drop off the kids anymore. Yesterday, they called me and told me that they were going to drop off 3 of my siblings. Now they usually give advance notice, so I thought maybe it was an emergency. Well, turns out they wanted to go to a destination wedding and needed a babysitter for 4 days. I told them no because my place isn't big enough for 3 extra people to sleep at. I live far from them now and wouldn't be able to drive them to school, and I didn't have the time or resources to take care of 3 little kids for 4 days. They responded with, "Oh, I'll give you money to buy them food and air mattresses, and they can skip school." I then told them no again, to which they responded, "We are at your house already, open up." I wasn't home at the time and told them that I wouldn't be home for 20 minutes. They said fine, that they can wait, and I said that I'm not going to watch them, but we can talk in person when I get there. Big mistake. I arrive home and I see my siblings at my doorstep. Worried that they were just left on my doorstep, I looked around for my parents. I spot their car and make eye contact with them. As soon as we lock eyes, they, I kid you not, drive away. I take the kids inside to figure out what to do as I can't watch them. I call them like 20 times, no answer obviously. Then I call my sisters, 18-year-old female and 16-year-old female, and explain to them what happened. They were shocked, and I told them that I was dropping the kids back off and going to get our parents back. I dropped them off with my sisters and then called my parents from my sister's phone. My parents picked up the phone and I told them that I was at their house with their kids. I was going to leave them with my sisters, and if they don't come back to watch the kids or arrange for them to have a proper babysitter within 2 hours, I am calling Child Protective Services on them. As I left, I told my sisters to call me if they need anything, give me updates, and let me know if our parents weren't back, haven't figured out babysitting arrangements in the next 2 hours. Well, anyway, 2 hours passed, and I got no updates, so I texted my sister and asked if she got any response from my parents. She said no, and that they aren't responding to their texts. After no responses, I called my police friend to do a wellness check just to scare them into coming back. It worked, and they returned, missing the wedding. Once they got back, they started blasting me with messages calling me vindictive. I blocked them, so my mom took my sister's phone and started texting me as my sister, basically saying, "You're a jerk for blocking mom." So I don't know, maybe it was a bit harsh to make them come back and then block them? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Their failure to plan for a sitter isn't your problem. Their idea of dumping them on you is child abandonment. I'm glad you called CPS on them. Hopefully they won't do this to you or anyone else again. Comment 2. Were you also supposed to skip work to take care of your siblings? How very entitled and ignorant on their part. You did the right thing. They'll never try to bulldoze you again. Not the idiot now for the update. Thanks for all the comments from my last post. So after everything that happened, I thought things would calm down. But boy was I wrong. The day after my parents came back, my mom showed up at my place unannounced. She was furious and demanded to know why I had blocked her. I told her that I needed some space and that her behavior was unacceptable. She didn't take it well and stormed off, saying that I was tearing the family apart. Later that day, my 18-year-old sister called me. She was upset because our parents had been arguing nonstop since they got back. Apparently, they were blaming each other for the whole situation, and it was causing a lot of tension at home. My sister asked if she could stay with me for a few days to get away from the chaos. I agreed, and she came over that evening. While she was staying with me, we had a long talk about our family dynamics. She confessed that she felt like she was always caught in the middle, and that our parents often relied on her to take care of our younger siblings. She was feeling overwhelmed and didn't know how to handle it. I could relate to her feelings, having been in a similar position myself when I was younger. A few days later, my parents called me again. This time, they were much calmer and wanted to have a serious conversation. They apologized for their behavior and admitted that they had been wrong to drop the kids off without any notice. They asked if we could all sit down and talk things through as a family. I agreed, but only if my 18-year-old sister could be there too, as she had been deeply affected by the whole situation. We arranged to meet at my parents' house that weekend. When we got there, the atmosphere was tense, but everyone was willing to talk. My parents started by apologizing again and explaining that they had been under a lot of stress lately. They said that the wedding was important to them because it was a close friend's, and they didn't know how to handle the situation better. I told them that while I understood their stress, it wasn't fair to put that burden on me or my siblings. I explained that I had my own life and responsibilities, and that they needed to respect that. My 18-year-old sister chimed in, saying that she felt the same way and that she needed more support from them. The conversation was tough, but it felt like we were finally making some progress. My parents agreed to be more considerate in the future and to communicate better with us. They also promised to find a more reliable babysitting arrangement for my younger siblings so that my sister and I wouldn't have to bear the brunt of it. After the meeting, things seemed to improve slightly. My parents started looking into hiring a part-time nanny, and they made an effort to check in with us more regularly. However, the underlying tension was still there, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. A few days later, my 16-year-old sister called me in tears. She said that our parents had been arguing again and that she felt like she was walking on eggshells at home. She asked if she could come stay with me for a while. I agreed, and she came over that evening. While she was staying with me, we had a heart-to-heart conversation. She revealed that she had been struggling with anxiety and depression for a while, and that our parents' constant fighting was making it worse. She felt like she couldn't talk to them about it because they were too wrapped up in their own issues. I was heartbroken to hear this and realized that our family had a lot of unresolved issues that needed to be addressed. I decided to confront my parents again, but this time I wanted to approach it differently. I wanted to get to the root of the problem and find a way to help my siblings and myself. I called my parents and asked if we could have another family meeting. They agreed, and we arranged to meet at their house again. This time, I brought my 16-year-old sister with me, as I felt it was important for her to be part of the conversation. When we got there, I started by explaining how my sister had been feeling and how their constant arguing was affecting her mental health. My parents were shocked and seemed genuinely concerned. They admitted that they hadn't realized how much their behavior was impacting us and promised to work on their communication and relationship. We also talked about the importance of setting boundaries and respecting each other's space. I told them that while I love my siblings, I couldn't always be the one to take care of them and that they needed to find a more sustainable solution. My parents agreed and said that they would continue looking for a nanny and try to be more mindful of our needs. The conversation was emotionally draining, but it felt like we were finally making some real progress. My parents seemed more committed to improving their relationship and being better parents to my siblings. My 16-year-old sister also felt more supported and agreed to see a therapist to help with her anxiety and depression. In the days that followed, My parents made a noticeable effort to improve their communication and be more present for my siblings. They found a part-time nanny who seemed reliable, and my 16-year-old sister started her therapy sessions. Things were far from perfect, but it felt like we were moving in the right direction. However, just when I thought things were settling down, I received a call from my 18-year-old sister. She told me that our parents had been talking about moving to a different city for a job opportunity. This news threw me for a loop, as it would mean even more changes and uncertainty for our family. I knew that this decision would test my true loyalties and force me to confront my own feelings about my role in the family. But before I could fully process this new development, I had to focus on supporting my siblings and helping them navigate whatever came next. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day!